All right, it's time for my rare regular season post-game reaction. Obviously, Suns Warriors, but I do want to talk about Knicks Nets as well, because that one was pretty fun. Should be said before we dive into Suns Warriors, these two teams play again in a couple days, and I don't even think it's on national TV. Last time I checked, that'd be kind of wild. Anyway, so the place to start is Steph, who of course did not have a great game, and off the top of my head, like sure, I remember the one where DeAndre Ayton blocked him when he stepped up on that screen really well. There was one where JaVale contested him pretty well and he missed. There was one late where he had, just a classic Steph Curry curl action, and I think it was like Crowder or Bridges that got a good contest on him. So the Suns definitely did better than your average team in sticking with Steph and knowing when to switch and knowing when to throw two at him, and Mikal Bridges was all over him in this game. But I would imagine if you go back and look at Steph's shot attempts, there's going to be some where it's like he usually makes that and he didn't. Now, that does not imply that the Suns got lucky. I mean, like maybe 2% lucky, but the Warriors were also not comfortable on offense. I mean, it's tough to remember everything, but there was one play that I felt like summed it up a lot. I think it was like late first quarter, maybe it was second quarter, where the Warriors ran a pick and roll up top and they threw it to the corner, and then the dive guy was coming to the rim, and the idea was the guy from the corner throws it to the guy rolling, and it was just like a classic Warriors type of possession that I feel like they beat teams on all the time. And the Suns were ready for it, and I think there was a rotation, and it might have led to a turnover, or it just wasn't your normal wide open layup off of the classic Warriors swing offense off-ball action. And I feel like that just kind of followed suit throughout the game. Now, even with that, you had Otto Porter, who to me was doing a good job of just relocating to where he could get himself some open threes. Jordan Poole was the one making the Steph Curry threes through a decent chunk of this game. But yeah, the Suns defense was great, and they just forced a lot of miscommunications out of the Warriors. Remember there was that one where Draymond was throwing it to the corner, and I think he thought that Steph was going to be moving, but Steph was just planted still. And I feel like that's just kind of what happens when you've got DeAndre Ayton lingering around the rim and Mikal Bridges' arms just reaching out everywhere, and Crowder, who's tough as hell. Like, they just make you take that extra second to think about what you want to do, and it can freak you out a little bit. Now, as far as the Suns on offense, of course, they didn't have Devin Booker for a good chunk of this. Early on, the Warriors put Draymond on CP, which was kind of wild to me. And I do think it stopped CP from driving. There was like one time when he ran a screen with Ayton, or maybe it was more than one, and they switched the action, and then I think CP threw it to Draymond, or he threw it to Ayton, and then he got a hook shot over Draymond. And he had like one or two over Looney. I think there was a Wiggins switch that he made a hook shot over as well. But yeah, to get back to that Draymond CP thing, it was an interesting idea that they moved away from, and I'm not going to try to act like what the right or wrong decision is. I'm just a guy on the internet. But it was very striking that they started the game with that. Now, eventually they went to that zone, and I would love to see the plus minus on the zone stuff, because sometimes it did seem like the zone was bothering the Suns a little bit, and then other times it was like Phoenix just clicked, and suddenly it was like, all right, CP get a screen from somebody early in a possession, or it would be like, CP gets a little bit of penetration, and then he swings it to Shamet, who takes one or two dribbles in, and it's Cam Johnson cutting inside, and it just seemed like the Suns were ready for that from Golden State, and I think Cam Johnson was probably the guy who scored the most, at least from three, against the Warriors zone. That was just the impression that I got, because it felt like he was the guy who was always getting the catch and shoots from CP when CP was like, oh, we have to hurry to try to break the zone a little bit. But again, I wouldn't be shocked to learn if the Warriors zone was a positive in the minutes they used it. I don't know. It's kind of impossible to know that right now. And then besides all that, you had your Chris Paul picking on Kevon Looney with that one like turnaround jumper that was kind of a turnaround jumper or whatever on the elbow. We had like 3 or 4 Chris Paul elbow jumpers in the fourth quarter just off of screen action, because that's a classic CP thing. So it was a really fun game. Again, they play again on Friday, and I think the thing to take away from this, because you could just say, well, look, Steph missed a bunch of shots. That's not going to happen all the time. That's true. We learned that these two teams can guard each other, and that makes the potential for them meeting each other in a playoff series very, very fun. Of course, there's also the factor of Klay Thompson coming back eventually, and maybe one of these teams making a trade at some point. So, yeah, but that was fun. Anyway, on to Knicks Nets, where it seemed like it was a David versus Goliath thing going on. You've got KD and Harden on one side, and you've got Obi Toppin running fast breaks on the other, and Derrick Rose bailing the Knicks out at the end of a possession, or Julius Randle hitting a turnaround jumper, or Evan Fournier coming off of that inbound play. Like, the Knicks offense, they find a way, man. And we saw, without Kemba, defensively, I think they looked pretty sharp. I mean, there were some good rotations on KD. One that I remember, for some reason off the top of my head, was like one for Mitchell Robinson that I thought was pretty all right, where KD beat his initial guy and Robinson met him right there, kind of to like the right-hand side of the basket. They started with Julius on KD for a decent amount, at least in the second half, if I'm remembering correctly. And of course, there's been talk of Randle this year and consistency, shot selection, all that stuff. I mean, late in that game, he had one play where he kind of muscled James Johnson out of the way. He had a really nice pass in the fourth quarter off of one of his post-ups to D. Rose, and that led to swing offense, which was an Alec Burks 3 that was huge for them. So they look good. I think I said it was the first game without Kemba. It was not the first game without Kemba, because he didn't play in the Hawks game either. Also, I believe Emmanuel Quickley had at least like one very difficult 3, because that's just what he does. I believe it was kind of almost from the logo with about 9 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, whatever it was. He played 38 minutes. I know some of that was because RJ had the illness, but I mean, clearly Tibbs is just like, listen, Kemba, I don't know, Quickley, yes, get in there. I'm doing all this about the Knicks. The Nets were the ones who actually won the game. What I remember the most were 3 pretty difficult Kevin Durant mid-range jumpers in the fourth, one off of an inbound that was over Julius Randle, one face-up that was over Obi Toppin, and then one pull-up over Randle. And then Patty Mills had that really gutsy layup where he started from the corner and it looked like the Nets' possession was dead. So, good win for them, but I do think the Knicks looked pretty all right.